Hi, Candice.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for talking to us today. I know we don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to squeeze in as much as I can possibly get in. Happy early birthday, too.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, you were born in Mississippi, but you grew up in Texas and Plano. I'm also from Dallas, too. Um,
Nice.
yeah. And then you went on to graduate summa cum laude with a bachelor's of fine arts degree in theater from SMU. And your career pretty much took off from there. Wouldn't you say soaps, countless TV shows, or what would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I won this contest out of college. They were searching college campuses for new recruits on The Young and the Restless. They came to SMU, and myself and another guy ended up being the guy and girl that they chose to join the show. I did a couple episodes. I had to go back and finish school. Obviously, I think I was a sophomore or junior at the time. I can't really remember. Um, Finished school, and then yeah, once I graduated, eventually came back to LA and started auditioning and living there for real.
And what attracted you to a career as an actress? What made you want to pursue it?
um I don't know, I think I've always had interest in it. I've always been a pretty empathetic, emotional sort of kid who had a large imagination, loved make believe, and the place for me to safely do that was in theater and being an actor. And so I could express all of the emotions I had and maybe couldn't express in my daily life in plays and stories. And so that's kind of where I felt most comfortable. And that's kind of where it began. And I realized that I had not only a knack for it, but I felt good about myself when I was doing it. And I think that's usually a good indication of knowing that you're on the right track, is knowing that it gives you a good feeling when you're doing it.
And what advice would you give to those who are wanting to pursue a career in acting that may not be in school, may not have took that route, but they're wanting to pursue that career? They know that's what they're destined to do. What advice would you give them?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you need to go to school to be an actor. I went to school just because I wanted a collegiate degree. I wanted higher learning. I like learning. I wanted that experience, and it made me mature as a young adult. I'm kind of glad I didn't move to LA right away, but I think anyone who's passionate about it, and maybe you don't have the means to study and go to school for it, I think you still have an opportunity to audition. It's just about your passion and being dedicated to it. It's a very difficult business to be a part of. There's a lot of rejection. It takes a lot. It takes a lot of hearing no. But if it's something you're passionate about, I would definitely say go for it. A lot of people have found success with less. So I say
Right.
yeah.
And you found a ton of success on Flash. Obviously, we love you as Iris West on the CW hit. Candice, talk to us about how you even got this role. How did you land this such a coveted role on this hit show? I mean,
It was an audition just like any other. It came in late December 2013. I'd gone in for an audition, uh, and it was with the director of the pilot, Nutter, and some producers. And I just remember I tanked it, or I thought I tanked it. I didn't do a very good job. I just remember I'd gone up on some of my lines. And there was a reference to Channing Tatum. I was like seeing a movie with Channing Tatum, but I couldn't remember Channing Tatum's name for my life. And so I just kept going up on it. And so I didn't really hear anything back. I'd gone home for Christmas. I figured it was just like dead in the water. I was kind of, depressed about it because I really felt like I was right for that role.
mm,
And so I had a hard time deciding if I wanted to come back to LA and keep pursuing acting. Um, and eventually I did. A week later, I think, not even, they called me back in to say that they wanted me to do a chemistry read with Grant. And so I went in, I read with Grant. Literally a couple days later, that was that.
I mean, you deliver. You have delivered season after season after season. Like I couldn't see anybody else playing Iris West. And speaking of Iris West, you received a lot of hate early on from being cast as a Black woman in this role, which
Yeah.
in the comics, she was white. The Iris West was white. Candice, talk to us about how you dealt with the hate and how you managed to use it to educate people on how to deal or how to treat you and women of color or Black people in general.
I think in the beginning it was hard just because it's hard to not be accepted even before you had a chance to prove your merit.
Right.
But I think Black people, Black women especially, are used to hate. Unfortunately, I want to belabor that point, but it is true. It's something that is common to us and our life experience. And so, unfortunately, it's something that we learn to deal with and overcome. As painful as it is, it's just something we have to, deal with on a day-to-day basis and put it aside and show up to work and do our job and continue. Our ancestors are all proof of that. My grandmother is proof of that. My mother is proof of that. All of our ancestors continued in the face of hate to achieve. And so for me, as painful as it was and sometimes still is, I made a conscious decision to not allow that to distract me from my purpose. It's bigger than me, and I have a higher purpose than just this show. I hope to pave some sort of way. I hope I've paved some sort of way. I hope I've been an example for, the possibilities that are available to us and what came after me. So if I've had any small piece in that, then, it's just something we, unfortunately, as Black women learn to do. We just put on the cape and we keep going.
You said a quote in 2014, we would be silly to say that issues don't exist in 2014. And you said that quote in 2014. 6 years later, what are your thoughts and where do you stand with the current climate of where we are now? What are your thoughts?
Race is as American as apple pie. Racism is as American as apple pie. It's so deeply rooted in our culture as Americans, and so we all collectively understand race, understand racism, study it, understand it, dismantle it. It will continue to be that. Me saying that, in 2014, it's 2020, nothing has changed, and it will not change until every single citizen gets on board and there's really a dismantling and an understanding of where we come from, our history, supremacy, white supremacy, and how it affects every avenue of how we live in America.
Right. You've been advocating for years. You've been speaking out. You've been speaking up. You've never shied away from these questions. You were very vocal, and you have been, for women, for Black women, for our equal justice, our equal rights in the workplace, in Hollywood. Candice, why are networks just starting to pay attention, and how will we hold them accountable to the promises that they're making?
I think they're just now paying attention because it's in the national spotlight. Unfortunately, a man had to lose his life for the world to wake up, and that gives me no joy. It gives me that Warner Brothers and CW are putting out, admissions to stand by us at this point because a man had to lose his life. And not just them, companies across the board, everywhere, company is standing up. It just makes me sad that a man, George Floyd had to lose his life, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, all of these people consecutively built this turmoil in our country for people to wake up. But like you said, I've been speaking about it for years. I've been trying to use my platform to illuminate issues that I've been going through. And it's just unfortunate, but I think at the same time, we have to seize the moment while we have a national spotlight.
Right.
And we have to do what we can to make long-lasting change, whatever that looks like. So to answer your other question, how do we hold them accountable? After this moment has gone, say that because I do know America's history, and I think this moment will at some point die down to some free.
Right.
So when that moment happens, I think we remind every statement, our friends, our colleagues, our companies we work for, who said, I stand behind you, I support you. And those moments that we don't feel supported and we don't feel like they are standing true to their word, we have to be fearless in saying, you said this. I didn't make you say that. You said that. You called me.
Mm-hmm.
You made a promise to me.
Right.
I'm holding you to that. And if you really believe those things you said in June of 2020, then you should still believe them today.
Candice, as a Black female lead of a hit show, what does support and allyship look like for you?
Support and allyship mostly is listening, having empathy,
Mm-hmm.
education, most importantly. Really important for my white friends to educate themselves on race and racism and what that has looked like in our country, how white supremacy has built itself. It's only then can we actually have a true dialogue, and can someone really be an ally. I think it's important for our white friends to really understand the idea of white privilege, understand what that power entails.
Mm-hmm.
And not to say that you have to feel guilty for that,
Right.
but to know that you have a privilege. That privilege is inherently extraordinarily powerful. It can do immense good and it can do immense harm and damage. And that as my ally, I expect you to use that power for good, to stand up for what you know or you're saying is right. So those are just a few ways that I think, allies can stand up.
You, like I said, you've been advocating and speaking up for the voiceless, I will say. How will you continue to champion Black women in Hollywood and outside of Hollywood to continue to get the justice and equal rights that we deserve?
I mean, I'll continue to speak up. I've never been afraid of speaking up. I have nothing to lose, because if I don't have a career and a life that um, is authentic and true to me and my experience, there's no point in me doing it. And so I think at some point you have to be willing to lose some things to gain some things for the greater good of everyone. And that's always kind of been my mindset. And so I know that if I'm experiencing these things and I'm an example of success, of what Black success can look like in America, and
Mm-hmm.
experiencing oppression, I can't even imagine what it's like for a 9-to-5 worker trying to make ends meet at the local grocery store. So if I'm not saying something in all of my privilege, all of my power, then I'm doing a disservice to my people. And I just can't, I don't know, I can't, with all I've been given and all the success I've been given and all the platform I've been given, I just don't know that I could be okay with that. So it's important to me to just continue to speak up about my experience. It's not about taking anyone down. It's not about encouraging anyone. It's about talking my truth.
Right.
My truth is my truth.
And do you encourage other people, because it's been a resurgence or an influx of people now talking about their experiences of microaggression or being treated unfairly in the workplace or in Hollywood? Do you encourage people to use their voices as well? If, even though they may not be on a hit show like yourself, they may be at a grocery store. Do you encourage them to also use their voice?
Absolutely, because you never know the value of your impact. You never know how big your reach can make. Human life is valuable, and your experience and your truth is valuable. And so it's really important to speak truth to power.
Yeah.
Never know who you're going to affect and influence. And I know how fearful it can be to speak the truth and to speak up.
Right.
As a woman, the lowest on the so-called totem pole, I know the fear. It's a terrifying thing to speak up when we are the least supported and the least protected. But what I will say is I hope that Black women especially know that now is a time that we are coming together.
Mm-hmm.
We should all be supporting each other,
Yes.
Black people, people of color, and know that you will have other Black people to stand behind you. And
Right.
as Black women especially, if you see another sister speaking up and speaking her truth, you stand strong behind her, you stand with her, and that's just what it has to be for our voices to be heard.
I love that, Candice. She Authority, talk to us about how you guys are working. I follow you all. I love what you guys have been posting, but I'm sure you guys are doing some things behind the scenes. How are you guys tackling our current state and climate of what we're going through right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a conversation to be had, and how we handle that, and all of the young girls and subscribers who subscribe to She Authority. I think it's important, because we want to be a place of inclusivity,
Yeah.
and a place where there's intersectionality. And often white feminism can be a very encouraging place, but a place that often Black people feel like we're not being heard and understood. So those are conversations that have to happen. And I think they're great conversations, and it's not a bad thing. It's just something that we have to learn to work through, and kind of, express that to the people who follow us, because it's something that I think collectively we're going through in this country. Is how does white feminism meet with Black Lives Matter, and how do we all support each other?
Right.
So yeah.
Okay. Candice, I have a fan question. How are we doing on time? Because I know we have 20 minutes.
We're good.
Okay. I have a fan question because your fans are so bomb. And I forgot to say at the beginning, this interview is dedicated to your fans. They have been hitting me up. They love you so, so much. You're so lucky to have them.
I am.
But I have a fan question submitted by @Kimmy_from the block. She wants to know, how high are the chances for a Barry and Iris vow renewal in season 7?
Hi, Kimmy. I have, I have no idea. I do in the writer's room. I really don't. And I kind of stay out of it for the most part. I make my overall arching wishes known. Whether they choose to go down those paths or not is kind of up to them. So I'm not sure. I think it's possible for sure. I know a lot of fans wanted that, but I kind of, stay out of it. I show up for work and say my lines and, keep it moving.
And do your thing and kill it. So your birthday, as I said at the beginning, is coming up on Wednesday, the 24th. And your fans, like I said, are the best. In honor of your birthday on June 24th, they have been raising money to provide 10,000 meals to LA Food Bank.
Wow.
We Feed LA. And their goal is 2,500. And if you guys are here in the comments, put posts where people can go and find that information. But they asked me to mention it, and I was like, I have to mention this.
God love. What a great cause, and it's something that I am 100% behind. So they know me. They just know me, and what a great thing to do for my birthday. I'm so appreciative.
How does that make you feel, knowing you have fans like this that support you in everything that you do?
It's overwhelming, and I think it comes from, them seeing themselves in a way that they've probably seen themselves before on screen. And not all of them look like me, and not all of them are Black, but it makes me feel really good that, they've connected with me in some way, no matter where they come from or what they look like, and that they are very passionate about my character and show and me. And, I can't put into words. It's overwhelming at times because they are so passionate. And every time I do an interview or do something, the number one thing I get back is your fans are so passionate and they have your back. And listen, I tell them, I know, I don't know what I did to deserve it, but every single second of it, I'm appreciative, because they've been able to speak up for me in ways that I couldn't speak for myself. And they have had my back in ways that I couldn't have my own back. And it's like this unspoken relationship. And I don't know that I've ever been able to express that, but that I'm so appreciative, of them seeing these things and speaking up against, the hatred of my being cast and all of these. They were vocal and they did not let up. They were really adamant about protecting me and protecting Iris West in a way, when often other people and the studios and the networks, they were there. Not on my watch. Not on my watch without me coming back and saying something to you,
Right.
So, it can get out of hand sometimes. I don't know that I condone that, but I do appreciate the sentiment of really wanting to stand up for something they think is right.
Well, I mean, if they're going to advocate and have somebody's back and go hard for somebody, it should be you. So, Candice, before I let you go, how are you practicing self-care throughout this pandemic? What have you done for yourself to like not get caught up in everything that we've been, experiencing?
It's hard. I think when it was just the pandemic, it was a little bit hard. It was a little bit easier.
Mm-hmm.
I think the George Floyd and the Ahmaud Arbery and the Breonna Taylor of it all is just, it became overwhelming, and to a point where it was like, I think sometimes in life you have to sit in the tragedy of things.
Yeah.
Accept that things are in disarray.
Mm-hmm.
And like they're not, to me, would be a disservice. And so, self-care is hard right now.
Right.
Todd Brooks from Supergirl just texted me. He's like, "How you holding up, sis?" And I'm hanging in there.
Right.
It's hard. I'm hanging in there. And I think it's important to be honest about, for Black people to be honest about what we're feeling right now. It's hard. It is time. And I don't want to give any pretense that I'm over here, in LA, just like sipping daiquiris and having the time of my life. It affects me deeply. I'm still a Black woman in America. And if I pulled over in, some southern town where they don't know who I am or don't watch The Flash,
right.
the same fate could happen to me. And so it affects me. It could affect my brother. It could affect my father. It could affect my cousins, my uncles. So I live with that every day of my life, whether I'm on television or not,
Right.
So I think for me right now, it's connecting with my friends that are going through the same thing, having an honest dialogue with them, being there for my friends, and, just being honest, just really honest and taking stock of how I'm feeling and what I can do to be a part of change.
Right. Well, you are at the forefront and you are a part of the change. Candice, thank you so very much for taking this time to talk to us today. I appreciate you so much, and I pray you have a beautiful birthday.
Thank you so much. This was such an honor. I had such a great time talking to you. Thank you so much for reaching out and having me.
Of course. Thank you, Candice. Bye.
Okay. Girl.
Where is the buzz? You said was mine.